Somewhere right now, your brain is creating this moment, but maybe it's not the one in control, because beneath your thoughts, behind your personality, and underneath everything you believe to be you, something else is watching, not judging, just aware. And that awareness, it might not be limited to your skull. Physicists have started to notice something strange. Reality behaves differently when it's observed. At the quantum level, particles change based on whether we're looking. That alone should terrify us, but it gets deeper. Some of the most brilliant minds alive, people like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, believe that consciousness might not just come from the brain, but might be woven into the fabric of the universe itself. Carl Jung once called it the collective unconscious. Today, scientists call it panpsychism. This theory suggests that everything, from a tree to a cloud to the atoms in your hand, contains a flicker of awareness. Not thought, not intelligence, just presence. And if that's true, then you are not a separate being trying to understand the universe. You are a fragment of the universe, trying to remember itself. Stick around, because this changes everything you thought you knew about consciousness, science, and what it really means to be alive. Before we dive in, go ahead and subscribe if you're drawn to ideas that challenge reality itself. That's how you tell YouTube, this matters. Now, let's take the first step. Consciousness is the one thing you can't escape. It's where you live. Every thought you've had, every sensation, every dream, it all happens inside this field of awareness. But here's the problem. No one actually knows what consciousness is. Neuroscience has mapped the brain, identified billions of neurons firing. But the question remains, why does any of it feel like something? You can simulate intelligence. You can replicate behavior, but no one has ever created or even explained the spark that makes an experience feel real from the inside. This mystery is known as the hard problem of consciousness, and it has driven scientists, philosophers, and mystics into a strange alliance. That's where panpsychism enters. It's not just a spiritual belief, it's a serious philosophical stance gaining traction in academic circles. The core idea? Consciousness isn't something that emerges when matter gets complex enough. Instead, it's already there, built into the very building blocks of existence. This means that the universe doesn't just contain consciousness, it is consciousness, expressed in infinite forms. Some physicists even believe this might be compatible with the unified field theory, the idea that everything in the universe is connected by a single underlying field. One mind, one presence, everywhere. Suddenly, your awareness isn't just a random glitch in a biological machine. It's a local expression of something far more vast. Think about that. The same force that moves galaxies might also be behind your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of self. And the closer we look, through the lens of quantum physics, ancient traditions, and our own inner experiences, the more this possibility refuses to go away. So let's go deeper. Let's explore what it really means to be a thought in the universe's mind. Try to recall the first time you realized you were aware of yourself, not just existing, but watching yourself exist. Maybe it was as a kid, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, suddenly wondering, what is this? And how am I in here? That's not a trivial question. In fact, it might be the most important one you'll ever ask. Because despite everything we've built as a civilization, despite AI, space telescopes, and brain scans, we're still haunted by one unresolved puzzle. Why does consciousness exist at all? Let's start there. Science, for all its brilliance, can explain almost everything: how planets form, how cells divide, how information travels through nerves. But when it comes to consciousness, science hits a wall. Not a theoretical one, a practical one. We can measure brain activity, but we can't locate the experience itself. No scan has ever found sadness in the brain. No MRI can show you redness or the feeling of being loved. Those are qualia, the raw textures of experience. They're private, untouchable, and somehow, they're the core of what makes us alive. Now here's the twist. The harder scientists try to explain consciousness as a byproduct of the brain. The more bizarre and fragile the theory becomes. Because think about it. If consciousness only emerges when you connect a bunch of neurons, then why does any of that matter feel like something? Why isn't your brain just processing input, like a computer, cold, efficient, and empty? There's no clear reason why neurons firing should create a subjective world. And yet, here you are, watching this video, feeling things, interpreting meaning, sensing you-ness. This paradox is known as emergentism, the belief that complex systems can give rise to properties that don't exist in the parts. Like how a car isn't just a pile of metal, or how wetness appears when you combine hydrogen and oxygen. But consciousness isn't like that. It doesn't just appear, it feels intentional, personal, deeply rooted. Some thinkers propose something radical. Maybe we've been looking at this backward. Maybe consciousness isn't generated by the brain. Maybe the brain is receiving it, like an antenna tuning into a frequency. That idea changes everything, because now we're entering the realm of panpsychism. At first glance, it sounds absurd. People laugh it off. So, my toaster is conscious? But panpsychism doesn't say that everything thinks. It says that everything, every particle of matter, has some tiny, fundamental seed of awareness. Not like ours, but something. Imagine a spectrum of consciousness. On one end, you have rocks, unchanging, slow, minimal awareness, perhaps just a whisper of being. On the other end, you have human minds, complex, self-aware, tangled in language and dreams. Between those extremes, there's a gradient. Plants reacting to stimuli, animals solving puzzles, birds mourning their dead. You might be tempted to say, that's just instinct. But then, what exactly is instinct? A chemical signal? A reflex? Or is it a form of awareness that we don't yet understand? The panpsychist view doesn't break science. It reframes it. It says, consciousness isn't a bug in the system. It's the system itself, trying to understand what it is. And here's where things get even more interesting. In physics, there's a long-standing quest to find a unified field theory, a single framework that explains all the forces of nature: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces. Some theorists believe this unified field isn't just a mathematical model. It might be consciousness itself. The ground of being. A field that pervades everything, everywhere, all at once. And your brain? It's just one local expression of that field, like a wave rising from the surface of an ocean. You're not generating consciousness, you're shaping it. Now pause and breathe, because that idea, if true, means that everything you've ever thought, felt, or feared didn't just happen inside you. It happened through you. You are not the origin of your awareness. You are a gateway for it. And suddenly, life looks very different. You're sitting somewhere, maybe on your couch, maybe in a car, maybe walking. But inside your mind, there's a kind of hum, a presence, a sense that someone is home. Ever wondered why that someone never goes away? No matter how much your thoughts change, that witness stays. It doesn't get older. It doesn't have an accent. It's not happy or sad. It's just there, observing. Some call it the soul. Others call it the self. But from the panpsychic point of view, that presence is a localized flicker of the same light that pulses through the entire universe. Let's go further. Carl Jung once described a phenomenon called the collective unconscious, a shared psychological reservoir filled with patterns and symbols that every human seems to recognize instinctively. the mother, the shadow, the hero, the trickster. But what if that idea isn't just metaphorical? What if Jung wasn't describing just our minds, but the mind behind all minds? In this light, your personal thoughts are like waves on a vast sea, unique in shape but made of the same water. And now, quantum physics enters the chat. In multiple experiments, like the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave differently depending on whether they're being observed. It's not just weird, it's unnerving, because the implication is this: the act of observation changes reality, not metaphorically, literally. Some physicists believe that this points to a truth we haven't fully grasped, that reality isn't made of stuff, but of information, and information needs a knower. That's consciousness again, creeping in from the edges. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, two leading researchers in consciousness studies, propose that quantum effects inside the brain, particularly in structures called microtubules, might be responsible for the emergence of conscious experience. But their theory, known as Orch-OR, goes even deeper. It suggests that quantum information isn't local for the brain, it's non-local, spread across space and time. So, your thoughts might not be yours alone. They might be echoes, resonances, from a universal field of intelligence. Now let's ground this. Think of the internet, billions of devices, all connected to the same invisible web. Each phone, each laptop, showing a different screen. But the data, it flows from a common source. What if your brain is a device, and your consciousness is the screen, a temporary display of a much larger network? This is not New Age fluff. It's a plausible model, increasingly explored by serious thinkers in neuroscience, physics, and philosophy. And it leads to an unsettling but profound question. If the universe is conscious, then is it dreaming us? Are we avatars in its mind? Let's pick up right where we left off. If consciousness isn't just in your brain, but everywhere, what does that actually mean for your life? Because this isn't just abstract theory. It changes the way we relate to reality, to each other, and to ourselves. Let's look at a simple example. You walk into a forest. The sun filters through the leaves. You hear birds. You feel something. A peace that doesn't come from logic. A presence that doesn't ask for words. Now, in the traditional model, that feeling is a side effect. Your brain likes nature. It releases serotonin. End of story. But in the panpsychist model, it's the forest welcoming you back. You're not just relaxing, you're resonating, tuning into a deeper field where both you and the forest are expressions of the same consciousness. You're not a visitor, you're family. This shift may sound poetic, but it has radical implications. Because if consciousness is not produced but participated in, then every interaction becomes sacred. Every moment becomes relational. You're not surrounded by objects. You're surrounded by others, and that includes yourself. Let's go deeper. When you think about who you are, most people picture a personality, likes, dislikes, memories, goals. But those are just content. They change. The real question is who's watching all that content? Who's aware that you're thinking? Here's where things get strange. In deep meditation or altered states of consciousness, induced by breathwork, psychedelics, or even intense grief, people report the same core experience, a dissolving of the personal I, and emerging with something vast, timeless, intelligent, and compassionate. They describe it with different names: God, Source, the Void, but the structure is always similar: a deep remembering, a sense that you never were a separate being, that you've been this other thing all along. And when you return, the world hasn't changed, but your relationship with it has. Now think about that through the lens of science. If consciousness is fundamental, if it underlies time, space, and matter, then experiences like these are not hallucinations. They're moments of alignment where the illusion of separation falls away and the signal becomes clear. You're not tuning into something new. You're remembering what you already are. And here's where the unifying field theory becomes more than physics. Some versions of this theory propose that every particle in the universe is connected through entanglement, a spooky, invisible bond that transcends space and time. This has been proven in labs. What happens to one particle instantly affects another, no matter the distance. Now apply that to consciousness. If you are conscious and everything is entangled, then maybe you're not a separate node. Maybe you're an aperture, a window through which the universe sees itself. This idea appears in ancient traditions too. In Hinduism, there's the concept of Atman, the individual soul, and Brahman, the universal soul. And the radical claim is this: Atman is Brahman. The individual and the infinite are not separate. They are one, seen from different perspectives. You find similar echoes in Christian mysticism, Sufi poetry, Buddhist philosophy, and indigenous worldviews. Different languages, same truth. But let's bring this back to you. Right now, you might be facing something heavy. Maybe a loss, maybe an identity crisis, maybe a quiet ache you can't name, and you might feel alone in it. But if consciousness is fundamental, you've never been alone. Not for a second. That silence you feel, it's not emptiness. It's the presence behind all things, waiting for you to remember. You're not a broken mind trying to fix itself. You are awareness, experiencing the mystery of being human for a while. And that awareness, it's eternal. It doesn't start when you're born. It doesn't end when you die, because it's not yours, it's you. So what does this mean, practically? It means you don't need to reach some final enlightenment or master plan. You don't need to become consciousness. You already are. Your joy, your pain, your doubts, they're not obstacles. They're the waves that let the ocean know it's alive. Even your fear of death is just the ego's misunderstanding of what it actually is. Death doesn't end consciousness. It ends the illusion of separation. And now we arrive at the paradox. You are temporary and eternal, a moment and the infinite, a thought and the thinker. So breathe, feel your heartbeat, blink. That awareness right now, that's it. That's the mystery, the miracle, the field, the presence. And once you touch it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. In a stranger's eyes, in a crack on the wall, in the pause between your thoughts. The universe isn't just out there expanding into space. It's in here, remembering itself as you. And yet, even with all this, one question still lingers. If consciousness is everywhere, and if you are part of something infinite, then why do you forget? Why do we fall back into habits, into fear, into the illusion of being separate? Maybe that's the next puzzle. Maybe forgetting is part of remembering. And maybe the next insight, the next crack in the illusion, is just one step away. So keep going. Let the next video pull you deeper into this mystery. Follow that curiosity, because this journey isn't just about learning something new. It's about remembering what you've always known. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.